so many of us have been positively and yet negatively impacted by bodybuilding methodology, or
Oh,
what I call meathead methodology, which is train to failure, train body parts, walk around, limp around, so sore you can't move, and eventually, you just tighten up, stiffen
exactly.
up.
Exactly.
And so my focus is I have married the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
kettlebell training with movement restoration,
Love it.
and
Yeah,
my clients love it. My customers seem to love it because they,
it's great.
I keep getting more customers, and
Yeah.
um, current customers do become repeat buyers. So
Yeah.
if they buy into the philosophy, a lot of guys, it's interesting because a lot of guys can't buy into the philosophy. They stick their toe in the water and they go, "This is just so foreign to me because I got to do my curls, and I got to do my my bench press, and I got to do all this stuff that Arnold did." Well, Arnold was in his 20s when he did it, and he was on steroids when he did it, and that was 50, 60 years ago when he did it, right? 50
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and times were different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
different world.
Completely different world. And
Yeah. You
if
can't do you can't do as a 40 something, 50 something, 60 something. I even have 70-year-old clients who email me,
mm,
and like, "Oh man, this is amazing." You can't do at our age what we could do
mm-hmm.
in our
Mm-hmm.
20s, because life is totally different. We have
Mm-hmm.
different responsibilities, we
Mm-hmm.
have different life stressors, and all those things impact the body as
Exactly.
right. So
Exactly. And so, I mean, I would maybe quantify this a little bit. You sure can, but I don't think you get a lot of return on investment. And
that's
then
yeah,
you
that's
probably hurt yourself along the way and all this stuff. It's fascinating when you look at Dorian Yates. I love that. I'm a big fan of just or a huge supporter of what Dorian Yates says. He says most of the bodybuilders that he knows at his age, they're still training the same way. They still have the same meathead mentality. And he says gaining the biggest amount of muscle mass is not the end all be all, and it's not the end goal, especially as you get older. You have to work on your flexibility. You have to work on, and one of the funny things that I always get just pops into my mind is when we talk about strength, right? It's so many folks. That's why you sometimes have these two camps, right? The GS camp and the hardstyle camp, where we, you know, uh, hit each other on the head with stuff like, yeah, you're not strong, yeah, but you don't have the endurance. And funny thing is, I'm always saying, listen, there's different types of strong, right? I mean, I'd like to have a strong heart. If I have a strong heart, that's one kind of strength. So
that's exactly
how do I build a strong heart? By building up some volume with a cardiovascular exercise that also requires a little bit of strength with the kettlebell, with a snatch, for example, with a swing, for example. So that's that. But I love what Dorian Yates says, that we have to understand that as we get older, we have to train differently. And just recently, another bodybuilder passed, a young guy. He's a German guy. His name is Joe Stetics. 8.5 million followers, big name in the fitness
all that.
influencer.
Yeah.
Yeah, fitness influencer world. I think he has an aneurysm. So the first thing that I did when I heard about his death, I was Googling aneurysm steroids. And you have some, I think there's some connection to a certain extent. And of course, now you have the guys who say, well, there's no connection at all. But here's my point. It is interesting to see that the bodybuilding world is still inspiring or influencing so many people all around the world, when fact of the matter is most of them are juiced up, especially the ones that have big followings.
Yeah.
So if I'm inspired by a guy who's juiced up, I want to look like him. Or I love how you say, for the good or for the worse, how bodybuilding can influence you. Or maybe it just completely wipes out your self-confidence and your body image.
Mm.
And the funny thing is, on my YouTube channel, I get these comments all the time with, yeah, but you're way too skinny. Where's your muscle mass? Blah, 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 blah. And thank God I've grown a little bit older, matured, that I don't really care about it. I realized, like, hey, listen, muscle size is one thing, but strength or being able to achieve in different areas of physical qualities and of human performance is something that is dear to my heart. It's not just about having big biceps. It's all about just having the whole system as a whole work as a union. And funny thing is, I know a lot of bodybuilders. And just recently, last year, we was visiting a friend of mine, and he is a bodybuilder. And then we took a walk, a long stroll, a long walk, and this guy was breathing like we were running. And I realized at that moment, I was like, see, that's exactly what happens if you keep thinking that bench press is everything you need throughout the whole week. a bench press and some lat pull downs, and you don't do nothing for your heart. And we're just casually walking around. I don't even feel it. And this guy next to me, which I love, he's a cool guy, but he's breathing like an ox.
Yep. I remember those days. When I graduated high school, I was 165 pounds. So what is that in kilos?
80 something, 75 something. Yeah.
75, let's say 75 kilos. And 3.5 years later, midway through my 4th year of college, I was 252 pounds. And I would go up the stairs to my apartment, and I'd get to the top of the stairs and I'd be sweating. I'd get out of the shower, take a hot shower, middle of winter, dry off. I start sweating. And I remember going, this is not healthy. Like, I can't do this. I was training for powerlifting at the time. My goal was to get to 275 because I think it was the strength coach at Rutgers, the football strength coach, Rock Gullickson, said, you'd be really good. He was a power lifter. He said, for your frame and size, like, you need to be 275. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to eat and lift my way to 275. But the problem is, like, you have to be able to live, right? Here I am like 21 years old thinking I'm going to have a heart attack at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
Right. So
but here's my question, Geoff. Why are we assuming that a person who's built at a certain size is supposed to be X? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. Somebody's tall, somebody's smaller, you have folks who are naturally strong or naturally big, right? I mean, take a look at some of the Kazakhstan guys or the Kazakhstan guys. These are walking behemoths, right? I don't know where they're from. Probably descendants of giants, right?
They build them inside the mountains and let them use
right? Exactly. So there are people like this. But funny thing is, I read, and I don't know what it was. I think it was a biologist's opinion or a biologist's view on the human body. And he said, the human body or the human mechanism is the turtle of the animal kingdom. We are strength endurance beings. And while there are exceptions that doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be strong, because I just recently read an article from Stronger by Science. It's a fascinating aspect that they shared in a newsletter. They said that 60% of people who are currently working out are achieving their endurance goals, or they are matching the endurance goals, and only 20% of those who are working out are maxing out or achieving their strength goals. So I think we still have a lot of room to bring strength into the world of, the typical cardiovascular stuff, right? Just running or just cardio machines or whatever have you. But I don't think it's the way of the bodybuilding type of realm, right? I mean, bodybuilding, like you said, it's for the looks, it's for the aesthetics. You have to follow certain principles in order to blow up the muscles. But this doesn't mean that you are strong now. And what do martial artists say? They say, man, I love playing with a bodybuilder because these are the easiest targets.
Yeah.
They're gassed after a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They're big targets. They don't move well.
Yeah.
Right. And they have no endurance. So, yeah, I think it's interesting because you brought up a very good point there. We have actually two worlds that we have to bridge. We have the bodybuilding world, and then we have the aerobics world, right? And Bill Phillips tried to bridge the two worlds back in the mid 90s, early 2000s, the Body for Life program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it was, he made millions of dollars, like hundreds of millions of dollars off that.
What was his name?
Bill Phillips. And it
Bill
was
Phillips,
EAS. If you know creatine, you know Bill Phillips and EAS because they were the first company to mass market creatine. Right, yeah, and so he built his business off of marketing creatine first and foremost, and then he built this program called Body for Life, and it was a transformation program. It was a 12-week, I think it was a 12-week transformation program, and so the foundation was bodybuilding, and then high intensity interval training mixed with some low intensity steady state or LIST training. It was a 5-6 day a week program, but it was bodybuilding aerobics. Aerobics. And one of the things that I appreciated about kettlebells is, a lot of people don't think they have the ability to work out 6 to 7 hours, maybe 10 hours a week. Okay. And that's a whole nother That's a whole nother argument right there, a whole nother conversation. But the kettlebell marries the two.
Funny thing, Geoff, you know what I say when people tell me this? I tell them, okay, pull up your phone.
Yeah.
Show me the screen time app.
Exactly right.
And then I guarantee you we can cut out some hours. Everybody spends way too much time on that social media crap. So that's and then it's always like, okay, you got me. See? Yeah. even family fathers or mothers, they're like, I don't have no time. You probably spend way too much time on Instagram, right?
Yeah, it's the stats.
Everybody does, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not me. I hate Instagram, man.
That's good. That's good.
I hate IG. But,
so keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you bring that up, right? The average, I don't know what it is in Europe, but in America, I think the average American spends about 5.5 hours a day on social media and touches the phone about 2,500 times a day.
That's just, it's just mind blowing. I think if you would just take 50% of that time that you spend on your phone and dedicate it to a craft or to a language, you probably learn like 5 languages in a year.
You know, that's getting back to your point about why everybody thinks they have to be big, right? The influencers on Instagram are like, hey, look at me. Yeah. Look at me. I'm huge. And you know what? If you buy my stuff, you'll be huge too. No, you have good genetics and you have a pharmaceutical bill, right?
That's just the truth. It's one thing that you share your accomplishments on social media, or that you really have a business where you're helping people and now you leverage the power of social media. I mean, if you do it, good on you. But if you are a juiced up Instagram fitness model selling online coaching, it's, even though the coaching might be good, you know, I think people tune into your stuff because they want to look like you, not because they want to look a little bit better. I don't know. In our case, what we do is we put our clients at the forefront of the ads because people can identify themselves with these people.
Right.
I've stopped putting myself on the ad. If I do it, I just talk about kettlebells, for example. Hey, talk about the product, talk about how cool kettlebells are. But it's not about the looks. Even though people want to look a certain way, I understand that people can identify themselves way better with normal people. And if you're able to achieve results with normal people and you can share them online, I think it just has a better track record. But that's, again, another discussion. But I get where you're coming from. It's this idea that we always have to look big. And in the kettlebell world, and you mentioned this about spending too much time on the workout with kettlebells, right? So please keep that thought. But it's another thing that you see a lot of bulky, really, it's hard to differentiate it or see it, but sometimes it looks to me also juiced up folks swinging kettlebells. And then I'm like, listen, the kettlebell does build muscle. It's a weight. So if you treat it for hypertrophy reasons, it will build muscle.
Right.
But it is a tool meant for a different purpose. So you won't look like a bodybuilder if you swing and snatch weights. You'll never look like this.
Correct.
So it's another illusion to a certain extent where people think, wow, I can look like this. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's what were you doing before you touched the kettlebell?
Me?
No, I mean, when we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Right? It's what were you doing?
Exactly.
You
I get you. Yeah, I get
right?
you.
And the answer is you were training like a bodybuilder. Maybe you had maybe you played college football, so you had strength and conditioning background, which you have a familiarity with Olympic lifts, so you can. I mean, that's what made kettlebells so easy for me, is my familiarity and my background, right? So maybe you had that familiarity, and you can bring it, but you're not showing people that. You're giving them the false impression that, hey, all you got to do is, like you said, a swing and snatch, and you'll look just like me. But that's, what do they call that? Misrepresentation. Untruth. I think that's what some people call it, right?
No, it's misleading.
Misleading.
Just like I don't want to step on nobody's toes here, but I think it's a similar situation when you are selling a program or showing people very fancy exercises with kettlebells, really fancy ones, and now, for the sake of looking like a Hollywood coach who always has to reinvent the wheel and then sell their program because it's the next big thing, you are now misleading your clients with your program or with your coaching, because I can guarantee you, try a couple of these flows with normal people. And here's a interesting realization that I had. The people who spend the most money are the ones who are in the most pain. So these are usually the ones who are a little bit older, have tried many things in their life that didn't work, and these are the ones who are now willing to spend a little bit more money in order to achieve their result. And these are typical folks who are not who don't have a lot of kinesthetic literacy, or maybe they do, they just don't know it. But the fact of the matter is, these are complete novices and beginners, and they have a huge pain point. And our job as a coach, or as a business rather, is to find a solution for that pain point.
Yeah, correct.
So my understanding is then, if this person signs up with you, you have to do your due diligence. Like you said, do no harm, but also don't waste no time.
Correct.
So if they walk into your gym, you have to give them, you are responsible, and you're even called to, you're forced to give them the most bang for the buck exercises in the time that they spend with you.
Correct.
You mentioned that the barbells are require a lot of time and technique, right? Especially the Olympic lifts.
In the Olympic lifts, yeah.
Right, most definitely. So that's exactly why in our sessions we use the basics 99% of the time. When we teach a snatch, we teach it to folks who are a little bit more advanced, and we rarely do stuff where people have to think too much. Yes, it's about the skills. They have to learn it and they have to understand it. But I think as a coach, especially when you work with normal people, and I'd like to get your take on it, especially when you work with average normal people who are willing to spend money to get a solution for their problem, then you have to find a perfect balance between giving them a lot of value for the time that they come in for the training, plus the skill practice. But the skill practice should not, in my opinion and in my experience, should not overweigh the time that they spend on training, unless you have somebody who walks in and says, listen, I want to learn everything about kettlebells. It's not about the body. It's not about the looks. I want to learn kettlebells. What do you think of this?
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm trying to think, and again, it's a little early here, so my brain's not firing on all cylinders, so I apologize to you and your listeners. But, you know, I can honestly say I've never had one person come to me in 30 years. Whew, man, that lands hard.
You're still young. You're still young.
That's right. I'm really young, right? Like I got plenty of juice left.
Plenty of time. Yeah.
So I've never had anybody come to me and say, hey, you know what? I want you to train me to be an Olympic gold medalist. Now I've trained athletes who have been semi-pros. I've trained pros, right? I've trained high school athletes, and obviously I trained college athletes, even trained some little guys, some middle school athletes. You know, my son is 12. He does BJJ. I train a BJJ kid who's like 16. I train my son and a couple of his friends, right? Every once in a while. But nobody has come to me from ground zero and said, hey, I've got all the money in the world and I want to be an Olympic gold medalist, right? Nobody's ever done that. And maybe I'm fishing in the wrong pond, right? So, you know, all right, hey, I got to go. I've got to go hit some marketing to go find this gold medalist and make a name for myself. See you guys later.
Exactly.
It's always been, hey, man, you know what? I've got like 20 pounds I need to get off. And I've been struggling with this same 20 pounds, right? Or I got 30 pounds. Or in some cases, like, man, I got this back issue that just won't go away, right? Or I've got this knee issue that just won't go away, or whatever, right? And so my goal is always, like you said, to start them with the most efficient exercise plan possible. I want to get them a quick win. Right? I always want a client to walk away going, man, that was great. I feel better than when I started. And this has been primarily how I keep clients. I don't set out to keep clients. Like I build a relationship with clients and I'm there to serve them. And when they think I'm done serving them, then, you know, that relationship moves on. Right. But I've got one client I started with in 2001 in North Carolina, and we now train online. And what is this, 2023? we took a little hiatus for about 6 years. But so I've known this lady for over 20 years, right? We've done everything together. She was one of my, we still joke about the kettlebell, the smashing, the bruises on the back of the arms. We wore them as badges of honor, oh, you do kettlebells. That's right. I do kettlebells. See, right? But it's always about getting them the quick wins so they can buy into the program, right? So they remain motivated and they see the results.